Some of us worked at a habitat site, like 8 of us, and so I think it was like Thursday, some of us wrote a haiku about what we did there. Shovels, rakes, and grout, surveying, bobcats, and bleach, lots and lots of dirt. And then that same day we also wrote a haiku along with a list of the fun things that we did. We went there to work, but made sure we had some fun. This is what we did.
We ate 8 pounds of gummy bears. Climbed the dunes at the Great Sand Dunes National Park.
Drank water and put on sunblock.
Watched 4 movies on the bus ride, played cards, President, Euchre, Spoons, Go Fish, Crazy Eights. Mastered the new game of bananagrams.
Drank water and put on sunblock.
Hot Springs Pool and Slide.
Drank water and put on sunblock.
Whitewater rafting down the Arkansas River. Played ninja and laughed at Ninja Gone Wrong. Waking to the drums.
Drank water and put on sunblock.
Leaving for this trip, I truly had little idea of what to expect. I knew that we would be working for an organization called La Puente, which in Spanish means the bridge. I didn't understand why they had named it that. I also knew that La Puente had a child care, a homeless shelter in which we would cook, and also a garden. I went into this trip wanting to try everything, but I was especially excited to hang out with all the kids. I suppose I thought that they would be like all the other kids that I babysit. But little did I know that these kids at the shelter had faced things I could barely imagine. On the first day of work, I eagerly volunteered to work at PALS, or Positive Activities Lift the Spirit, which is the daycare that La Puente provides. They support children who have families in the homeless program they also offer, as well as children suggested by Human Services. The children coming from Human Services all have open cases. However, most, if not all, the children have faced awful situations. The staff mentioned that there were very few of these kids that lived with both of their parents. I remember being shocked after hearing this. Not only could I barely imagine this alone, but this is the least of most of their worries. From the moment I saw all those teeny grins and big eyes, I knew I would never forget them. As the days went on, I found myself a big buddy to many of the children, but especially to a 7-year-old girl named Shailia. Her beautiful brown curls graced her back, and her sweet, caring personality shined, but these traits could not, however, cover the scars on her face. Her 2 younger brothers, Patrick and Jeremy, I also noticed had a difficult time talking clearly. After our work day, the staff and big buddies had a debriefing session. This was where we could share funny stories, ask questions, or share things the kids might have told us. I curiously asked if they could tell us Shailia, Jeremy, and Patrick's story. So they began. My sweet, loving pal had been through so much in just 7 years. Not only is her mother in prison, she only gets to see her father every couple months, and only for a day or so. To add on to that, her scars are from an alcohol-related car crash. Alcohol is also the reason Jeremy and Patrick have such a hard time speaking. Their mother abused alcohol while she was pregnant. Because of all of this, the 3 children live with their grandparents, who offer a healthy and happy environment. However, because of her brother's speaking conditions, Shailia has to speak for them and set a good example at all times. For a young girl to have to deal with such great responsibility, I find extremely troubling. I, like my parents know, am not even as responsible as I should be. Along with that story, we also got to drive the children home. As we dropped off the kids one by one, I couldn't help noticing how bad their living conditions are. It also made me aware of how much I take for granted. For example, having a clean house, healthy food, new clothes, and not having to share a room. The drop-offs were always the hardest part for me because I never knew what they were returning to. After the first day, I remember being sad because growing up, I was always getting piggyback rides. It wasn't a big deal to me, but to these kids, a piggyback ride can make their day. As the days progressed, I got to know even more of the kids, such as Cayetana, another little girl. Her story really frightened me. When she was young, her mother's boyfriend was extremely abusive, physically and sexually towards her. Then her mother was deported back to Guatemala. Cayetana and her little brother now live with foster parents. They will never experience the childhood that they should have gotten. As Friday rolled around, my connection and love for these kids was so strong. I felt that I knew them as well as some of my friends back at home. Saying goodbye was one of the hardest things I have ever done. I realize the kids deal with goodbyes almost every week, but I don't think they know how much of an impact they have on their big buddies. If there was a way I could stay a part of these kids' lives, I would do it without a hesitation. I am so worried that these kids won't be able to get out and experience the things that they are missing out on. This trip taught me how lucky all of us are and how good we have it. I think I now know why they call it La Puente. This organization gives people the resources they need to get back on their feet. They give them shelter if they are homeless, they provide a safe sanctuary to abused children, and they also give food to people who don't even have the basic necessities. They are helping people overcome poverty. Instead of watching them suffer or wade through the water, they are helping them get on the right path or over the bridge. I am so glad I went. Besides opening my eyes to poverty, I have also made new friends and learned even more about my old ones. I also would like to thank once again Dave, Luann, Tammy, and Lori. Without them, I wouldn't have had the chance to experience La Puente and PALS. Thank you.
Trip, I never would have imagined that after only 4 days of work at La Puente, I would be so deeply impacted. Each child we played with, every person we served at the shelter, and each individual we met came from different backgrounds and had their own unique stories to share. Alamosa felt as if it was a world away from my life in Madison, as many people there have faced poverty at extreme levels, been in difficult family situations, and are working to overcome larger obstacles in their life than I've ever even imagined. In our time spent cooking meals at the shelter, we had many guests approach us to say a simple hello or thank us for all of our hard work. One of the guests, named Jimmy, seemed to enjoy our company and even shared a few jokes with us. Both Jimmy and another guest named Bonnie spent a large part of the afternoon at the counter right by the kitchen sharing stories as we cooked. The two guys were very entertaining and we learned a lot from their stories. It sounded as if both of them had dreams in their lives that they were not able to fulfill. And in that moment, I realized that not everyone has the same chances to succeed in life as we do. Aside from cooking at the shelter, we ate the majority of our meals there. This was another great time to meet guests. Throughout the week, I bonded with a 9-year-old girl at the shelter named Amanda. I always look forward to seeing her again at mealtimes and being greeted by her huge smiles and heart-filled hugs. She seemed to gain trust in me over the days because by the end of the week, she openly told me about her abusive father and drug-addicted brother. Hearing that sweet young Amanda had already been through so much in her short 9 years of life really upset me. It made me take a step back and appreciate everything that I have in my life, especially my loving and supportive family. Thankfully, Amanda lives with her mom, who is a very caring and devoted woman. Besides working at the shelter, some of our time was spent playing with kids at PALS, the La Puente Daycare Center. These kids had all been affected in some way by violence, abuse, family struggles, or poverty. Brooklyn, a 5-year-old girl I spent a lot of time with, talked about not wanting to go home. The only thing she had to look forward to each day was those 6 hours spent at PALS. This was very sad to hear, but made me realize that each minute the kids spent playing at PALS was a minute they could forget about their stressful lives and tough situations. Despite the hard lives the kids are forced to live, they are very positive and hopeful. It was great to see the kids find joy in small things, such as playing on a playground or reading a funny book. While we were at a park, a young girl named Shaylin asked me to push her on the swing. I pushed her on the swing for half an hour straight, and the entire time her head was thrown back in laughter. The hardest part of the whole week for me was saying a final goodbye to the kids. We had all bonded more that week than I had ever thought possible. As I watched the PALS vans pull away for a final time, I knew I would probably never see the kids again. That thought alone brought tears to my eyes. Thankfully, they all have high hopes and dreams to aim for in their lives. I hope and pray for the best lives possible for those young kids, along with the others we met in Alamosa, Colorado. I believe that with enough support, determination, and courage, everyone we met can push through their struggles and live the kind of life I believe they all deserve, a life of success and happiness. I am very glad I got the chance to go and help out these people in every little way possible. It does not feel like the tasks we did amounted to much, but I know they appreciate help big and small. This trip really helped me to grow as a person. It allowed me to visit a whole different part of the country, assist people in need, and make and strengthen friendships. I hope I'm able to apply everything I learned in Colorado to my life here in Madison for the good of others. This trip was an amazing experience for me and definitely one I'll never forget.
Behind happy faces are stories that we heard. They are stories we think are only heard in movies or behind closed doors, told by children, some not old enough to understand. There are stories of abuse, alcohol and drugs, broken homes, and lives divided. They go to a happy, safe place called PALS, a place where they can forget about their troubles and be a kid. The staff at PALS are there to catch them when they fall, constantly pointing them to a better future. They trusted us to come into their lives for a week. We had an opportunity to make a difference in their lives, and they ended up changing ours.